The humiliation happened in a place meant for privacy, and that was what made it unbearable. In a narrow restaurant bathroom with flickering lights and the smell of cheap cleaner in the air, a young waitress stood frozen, staring at her own reflection as tears slid down her cheeks. Her apron was still tied, her hands were shaking, and her chest felt like it was collapsing inward. Just minutes earlier, she had been laughed at, belittled, and cornered by the very person who controlled her shifts and paycheck. The manager walked out as if nothing had happened, not knowing that somewhere just beyond the thin walls of that restaurant, the woman he had just broken was deeply loved by a man trained to notice danger, injustice, and fear before it ever spoke aloud. If stories about dignity, kindness, and second chances matter to you, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Small actions like yours help stories like this reach hearts that truly need them. Her name was Lily, and she had learned early in life how to endure quietly. She was the kind of person who apologized even when someone else stepped on her foot, the kind who smiled through exhaustion because rent was due and bills did not care about feelings. She worked double shifts at a busy roadside restaurant that lived on the edge of a highway, serving travelers who barely looked up from their phones and locals who expected perfection with every plate. Lily took pride in her work, not because it was glamorous, but because it was honest. She memorized orders, cleaned tables until her fingers cracked, and endured sharp words from customers with the belief that hard work would eventually lead to something better. What she did not expect was that the worst cruelty would come not from strangers, but from the person who signed her schedule. The manager was known for his temper and his need to dominate. He ruled the restaurant through fear, reminding employees how easily they could be replaced. Lily tried to stay invisible around him, but mistakes happen when you are human. A spilled drink, a delayed order, a customer complaint that had nothing to do with her effort but everything to do with timing. On that day, one small error became an excuse. He followed her into the bathroom under the pretense of discipline, his words sharp and demeaning, stripping her of dignity piece by piece. There was no physical harm, but the humiliation cut deep, leaving her feeling small, trapped, and powerless. When it was over, she stood alone, breathing hard, trying to collect herself before returning to the floor as if nothing had happened. What Lily did not know was that her husband had chosen that exact day to surprise her. Ethan had just returned from deployment, his body still carrying the weight of long nights, unfamiliar terrain, and the quiet tension that never fully leaves someone trained to protect. He was a Navy SEAL, but at home, he was simply a man who loved his wife deeply and fiercely. He had not told her he was back because he wanted to see her smile when she least expected it. He waited outside the restaurant, watching through the window as she moved from table to table, his heart swelling with pride. He noticed when her shoulders slumped, when her smile faded, when she disappeared toward the back longer than necessary. Years of training had taught Ethan to read the smallest changes. He knew when something was wrong before Lily ever stepped outside. When she finally emerged, her eyes were red, her movements slower, her spirit visibly shaken. She tried to hide it, tried to smile when she saw him standing there, but pain has a way of leaking through cracks no matter how hard you seal them. In that moment, Ethan understood that this was not just a bad day. This was harm that had crossed a line. Lily broke down in his arms outside the restaurant, the words pouring out between sobs as weeks of fear and silence finally escaped. She spoke of the manager's cruelty, the threats about shifts, the humiliation she had endured alone, because she did not want to burden him while he was serving far away. Ethan listened without interruption, his jaw tight, his heart breaking in a way no battlefield had ever caused. He did not rush inside in anger. He did not raise his voice or threaten violence. Instead, he did what he had been trained to do best. He assessed, he planned, and he chose the path that would protect not just Lily, but everyone else who might be suffering in silence. The following days marked a turning point. Ethan helped Lily document everything she had experienced: dates, behaviors, witnesses, patterns. He encouraged her gently, reminding her that strength was not about enduring abuse, but about refusing to accept it as normal. Lily was terrified. She feared losing her job, being labeled difficult, being dismissed. But she also felt something new growing inside her, something she had not felt in a long time. She felt supported, she felt believed, and slowly, she felt brave. They returned to the restaurant together, not as a confrontation, but as a stand. Ethan did not wear his uniform, did not announce who he was. He stood quietly as Lily spoke to the owners, her voice shaking but steady enough to be heard. Other employees, seeing her courage, found their own. Stories emerged that sounded painfully similar, different victims, same abuse. What had once been whispers turned into undeniable truth. The manager, who had built his power on fear, suddenly found himself exposed under the light of accountability. The investigation moved quickly. The bathroom that had once felt like a cage became a symbol of the breaking point, the place where silence finally ended. Lily watched as the manager was removed, not with shouting or revenge, but with consequences that matched his actions. It was not just justice for her, it was protection for others. It was a reminder that cruelty thrives only when people feel alone in the weeks that followed. Lily changed in subtle but profound ways. She still worked hard, still smiled at customers, but her smile reached her eyes again. She stood straighter. She spoke when something felt wrong. The restaurant changed too. A new manager arrived with respect instead of fear, and the atmosphere shifted from survival to teamwork. Lily's courage had ripple effects she never imagined. At home, the quiet moments mattered most. Ethan watched Lily rediscover herself, watched her laughter return in full, unguarded bursts. He never framed himself as a hero, never took credit for her strength. He knew the truth. Lily had faced her fear and chosen dignity. He had simply stood beside her, as partners are meant to do. This story is not about intimidation or revenge. It is about awareness. It is about recognizing that power does not come from cruelty, and that true strength often looks like compassion, patience, and standing up the right way. Lily's pain did not disappear overnight, but it transformed into something meaningful. It became proof that even in the most humiliating moments, a person's worth remains untouched. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone who deserves support, or if you've ever faced injustice in silence, please take a moment near the end of this video to like, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories like Lily's reach people who might still feel alone. Before this story ends, I want to ask you something important. Please comment below and share your thoughts, or simply write a message of support for anyone who may be going through something similar right now. Lily never forgot the bathroom where she once cried alone, but it no longer defined her. What defined her was the choice she made afterward, the courage to speak, and the love that reminded her she was never as powerless as she felt. And somewhere in the quiet of an ordinary life, a woman reclaimed her dignity, not because someone fought for her, but because she finally believed she was worth fighting for.